Hi, my name's Samuel Findlay, and you're listening to the ACES podcast. In this episode, I have a conversation with founder and creative and chief of Patton'd Studios, Molly Patton. We chat about studying both science and arts at university, merging the two together to start her business, communicating science through visual design, journal cover artwork, and much more. So let's get to our conversation. So I'm chatting with Molly Patton on the podcast today, founder and creative-in-chief at Patton'd Studios. Thanks for joining me, Molly.
Happy to be here, Sam. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be an interesting conversation and quite a refreshing change for me. I've been chatting to mostly PhD students or former PhD students and researchers, which I've enjoyed and continue to enjoy, but this will be something different. So I'm excited to have a chat.
Yeah, well, happy to share, that's for sure.
So, firstly, for people who don't know you or don't know what Patton'd Studios is exactly, could you give us a quick explanation?
Yeah. So my role is a creative director. So I founded a design company called Patton'd Studios, which is specifically geared to creating visuals for scientific research and science communication, or technology or innovation, sort of in that kind of scope. And we do everything from graphic design through to animation, branding of new startups, pretty much whatever the problem is, we find a visual solution for it. And we've worked with people in sort of medical technology, all the way through to energy storage, and even sort of new space technologies and astronomy. It's been really, really fascinating to see how broad the scope and the of research is here in Australia. It's quite incredible, and to be able to talk with people in that industry and communicate what they do and make it look amazing is really rewarding.
How have you found business more recently? During COVID-19. Obviously everyone's sort of lives have changed and working lives specifically. How have you found running your business during these recent times?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I will say that. On one hand, it's presented some challenges, obviously, particularly financially, dealing with the uncertainty of not knowing, when things are going to pick up again. Obviously, the academic sector, which is my main clientele, is going to get hit pretty hard. So that's presented some challenges, and also not knowing, when lockdown was going to finish, how long it was going to be quiet for. That's been tough. But it's also presented some relief, not having to travel as much around for meetings, which I enjoy. I love meeting people face to face, but they take so much time out of my day. And, those hours need to be made up somewhere. So it's been kind of nice not to constantly have to play catch up. It's so easy to get caught up in like that day-to-day chaos of meetings and projects. And it's been nice to have that time to just reflect and regroup and seek out opportunities amongst all this sort of hardship and find out what the best thing to do moving forward is. And I think there's some real opportunities there.
So let's go back to your background, I guess, and where it all began. So you did both the Bachelor of Arts and the Bachelor of Science at Deakin University, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So why did you decide to do both science and arts?
It kind of just happened. It's one of those things. I never knew what I wanted to do. I never had that, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor or a teacher or a lawyer or, whatever it may be. I never had that. I just enjoyed doing too many different things, and I enjoyed learning most of all. I really enjoyed just having new experiences, and I was very inquisitive, and I asked a lot of questions as a kid, to the point where I've been kicked out of class for asking too many questions. So I was that kid. And I found science was a really great way to answer a lot of those questions. So I followed that pathway and ended up following, through my love of sport, sort of following the biochemical pathways and metabolism, and sort of almost entering into nutrition on like a molecular kind of level. which was really fun. But I've also always enjoyed art. I've always drawn, I've always taken photos. And as I made my way through school and the science got harder, particularly maths, I really struggled with maths. All throughout school, I had to work really hard to get anywhere. And I found that balancing that with art, which is equally intense, I think there's a misconception that it's a bit of a bludge. It's really intense, but it's kind of a different kind of intense. And so it stretched my brain in different ways, and it kind of just felt really balanced and it felt right. So I ignored the advice of all my school careers advisors and decided to do both. And it just so happened that at the time, Deakin was the only university that offered a Bachelor of Arts in photography and creative subjects, as well as a Bachelor of Science parallel. So, it was kind of a no-brainer. It was an easy decision of where to go and where to study.
So your Bachelor of Arts was focused on photography. Did you, because obviously you do a lot of graphics work now, did you do some graphic design work then as well, or have you had to sort of learn that on the go?
I knew nothing about graphic design. I think as most academics can probably relate, I made all my figures and diagrams in PowerPoint. I still did that. And no, photography was my thing. I feel very comfortable with a camera in my hands. And, I did everything from like the film photography where you have to develop it yourself and experimental techniques with different chemical compositions, which kind of my science side influenced as well. I've sort of landed on digital photography. It's much more convenient and less messy. And you can get some really great results now through Photoshop and all kinds of technologies.
And you've worked as a photographer as well?
Yeah, I did a brief stint during undergrad as a real estate photographer, which is nowhere near as cool as it sounds. I was, I mainly got like the renovation jobs, so the old ramshackle shells of houses that were due to be bulldozed, and I'd have to go in and step over the broken floorboards, and it's probably a serious OH&S issue there. Come to think of it.
Sounds it.
I had to just Photoshop, the huntsman out of the corners of the rooms, and which I hate spiders, and that's probably why. And it was an experience, and I really enjoyed it. It's just a real bread and butter editing skills that you learn, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. Just you go out, you go to a house, you shoot it. It was kind of an input-output situation, and I got paid. So that was brilliant. But I also worked a lot in hospitality as well, as I think most people did throughout uni.
You and I both.
Yeah. So we can relate.
Definitely. So you stayed on as a research scholar after finishing your undergraduate degree at Deakin University. Is that right?
Yeah. So I did. I went on to further study. I had done some undergraduate projects and a summer internship with the Institute for Frontier Materials, which is a part of ACES.
Yep.
And I actually began a master's degree with ACES, and which was just the most amazing opportunity. And I would have been foolish not to take it. So I did, and I worked under Maria Forsyth in her group with Dr. Ren Green. And it was a lot of fun. We were looking at biomimetic materials that could potentially be used for cartilage repair or replacement treatments, which was being a semi-amateur soccer player. My knees were shot to pieces. So I thought, this is great. I so need this. It was really nice to have sort of that relevant tie to the research as well. And there were aspects of it that I really enjoyed. I loved the people. I loved listening to everybody else's research and how passionate they were. And I found it so interesting, just the way they spoke about it, and, just the notion of, we're really making a difference here. And I thought, wow, that is, if you could bottle that and sell it, that would just be incredible, that enthusiasm and that passion. And funnily enough, like through this whole process, I discovered that I had a knack for making little figures and diagrams and curating people's research presentations for them. And they weren't anything fancy, but I didn't know how to use graphic design tools, as we said. So at the time, I just made them in PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And quite enjoyed it for the most part, to the point where I probably did that more than I did the actual research. So that wasn't ideal, but it was certainly a real eye-opener, and I saw a real pathway down there, and combining that with all the opportunities that ACES gave me, going to conferences and just tagging along to stuff and getting the experience of what it was like to be an academic. I think in undergrad it's sort of hidden a little bit away. You just sort of see the classroom side of things. But going to see what researchers actually do, and hearing their goals and their frustrations and their worries, and and also their triumphs. And a lot of the time people would come back to me and say, we don't have time for this, or we don't have enough funding, or like industry just, we can't seem to find a way to show the value of this to industry. And all these things sort of started ticking in my head and got me thinking that maybe there's like a communication problem here. And perhaps visual media could play a huge role in making the look and feel of research kind of reflect the value of the work, because the research quality that we have in Australia is second to none. So it shouldn't be a problem. So part of what got me thinking is, well, why is this a problem? And after I left, I continued to think about those problems and how there wasn't really a resource where academics could go to have this kind of stuff produced for them. And that's kind of how the notion of Patton'd Studios started.
So did when you started Patton'd Studios like that, was it something that you were sort of thinking about doing on the side and then continuing with a career in science, was your plan to sort of go full time and really make an effort to make that a career?
It's a really good question. I think, I was pretty burnt out by the time I sort of got to my master's. I had to work very hard at school. A lot of my friends were absolute geniuses and I loved them to bits, but my God, they raised the bar. And trying to keep up with them, I had to work really, really hard. And I just continued that through uni, and I kind of just lost sight of what my end goal was. I just sort of focused on being a student and didn't really think about what I wanted to do. So I kind of got to the end of it and I was like, I still don't know. And I just wasn't really sure. So I decided to do something I've never done before and just kind of do nothing. And I got a job at a Best Western hotel and did lots of odd jobs in there. I waitressed. They had this quaint little fine dining restaurant, and I ran the bar, and they had lots of events and weddings and retreats, which was really interesting. I also had the night shift running room service, which was kind of crap, but it was really interesting just to sort of stop thinking about everything and just kind of focus on something that paid the bills firstly. And I could just kind of relax my head a bit. And I traveled, I went to China, which was incredible. Really recommend going when COVID-19 is all done and dusted. It's a wonderful place. But all throughout this, I kept coming back to these conversations that I'd had with researchers and their problems. And I thought, well, I love learning and I love the people, but I felt I just had such a different skill set that I knew I couldn't be a researcher. It just wasn't for me. So, through this creative training, I thought, well, perhaps I'm in a position that I can contribute to the visual communication side of research and see if I can make a difference there and see if I can take away these problems that researchers seem to be facing through my own skills and through graphic design. So that was about a 6-month process after leaving ACES, and a very fun conversation to start over the Christmas dinner table that year. It's Mum, Dad, I want to start a business. So it was kind of a journey of self-discovery, I suppose, in a way of just coming back to what I really enjoy, and that's learning and arts and science. And whatever I did, it really had to include both of them or I wasn't going to be happy.
Yeah. So was there a particular moment or a particular breakthrough during that time that then really pushed it forward to become this full-time career?
I got approached by Jenny Pringle, who had a journal cover opportunity. And so I took my camera and I went over there and I took some photos and they were like ionic liquids and plastic crystals. These, I guess they were spherical beakers. I can't remember the name, but taking photos of these, and I created like this really cool abstract photograph and overlaid nanofiber sort of SEM imagery of the same material. And I thought, oh wow, this is really cool. This is abstract, but still reflects the science. And I thought that's a really interesting notion to play with. And there's so many levels of depth in that. And that was kind of when I thought, oh, maybe there's something here, especially when it got the cover. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I am kind of good at this and, make a run for it. And I have nothing to lose. I think I was 23 at the time. Working in hospitality, it's like, well, let's have a crack. Let's go.
So how do you approach that, merging science and design and art together?
Not easily. In a few words, yeah, not easily. It's, I think the more I got into it, the more it all started to kind of make sense and the puzzle pieces fit together. So I started with literally my PowerPoint skills and photography. And I knew I had to learn graphic design. So I jumped into that, and one thing kind of led to another. So people started asking for websites. So sure, I can do web design, and learnt web design. Animation was a tough one. I sort of had to learn that in a studio for about 4 months, just practicing and just learning as much as I could. I just came in with the mentality of be a sponge, kind of. That was the role I sort of played, and I got to see how they ran the studio, and it was just the most amazing experience. And a lot of those people who are at that studio, I now work with. So there's a really nice sense of community there as well. And I trust them, with all the projects. I've seen how they work, and it's just amazing. So that kind of the creative visual imagery side sort of started to come together. And the more I started working with other people, the more I found that I don't enjoy the creating side as much as I thought I did, except maybe photography. I don't enjoy the process of animating. It's a nightmare. It's really, really hard. And unless you have that 10 years experience, it's never going to look how I wanted it to look. So moving forward, what I found I really enjoyed was the problem-solving aspect of design and taking a series of criteria and instructions from clients and saying, we don't just want a diagram. We need a diagram that does this, and we want to use it here and here, and it'd be cool if it could do this. And I take that information and distill that down into the right solution for the client that fits all their needs and also looks great. And that's part of what I really enjoy, and being able to apply that in a research setting and help sort of boost the visual impact of science. That's coming full circle, and that's really rewarding.
So earlier this year, you designed the journal cover art for the Royal Society of Chemistry Next-Gen Nanomaterials. How did that come about?
It was a really, really fun cover. So it was a Deakin group through the Institute of Frontier Materials. It was a really interesting one, a really fun one, but particularly interesting in that it wasn't how we normally do journal covers. So usually what happens is a group comes to us, they've been offered a position of a journal cover, or they want to apply for one, and we go through an extensive kind of process we've got really down pat over the years, whereby I'll have a talk with the researchers and I'll have a read of the paper, and I'll try and pick out sort of what parts are really integral to the research and what could be visually communicated really well. But we also research the journals and what they like to publish as well, because yes, it has to look great and the client has to be happy, but the client will be really happy if we get them the front cover or inside cover or back cover, whichever it may be. So our primary objective is to make sure that the journal also loves this cover as well, so we give them the best chance of getting published. So in the case of the Royal Society of Chemistry, that didn't quite happen. The Deakin group, they came to us with a really vivid idea of what they wanted, which was really cool. It was they wanted like this underwater scene with their next generation nanomaterials, which they're called TMDs, which stands for transition metal something. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last word, but they're really, really cool. And they just wanted to showcase this TMD structure, which is sort of the golden cube. If you go and look up the cover, in the middle of an underwater, kind of like a coral reef scene. And they wanted to have, instead of coral, like these rusted, older generation, if you like, nanomaterials, so your buckyballs and your nanotubes,
right,
all lying around. And it was really, really cool, but we felt that the shallow water wasn't really, didn't really work with the idea of like rusty, old, undiscovered things. So we kind of pitched the idea of making it deep sea, like Discovery, finding underwater treasure, or, something like Titanic, where you'd see all these old, things, and then all of a sudden you pop up and you see this glowing treasure, which is their new structure. And so we played on that and we pitched it to them, and they really liked it. So we went through lots of research into sort of underwater wrecks and what they look like, the kinds of creatures that live on the ocean floor. So there's a few crabs in there that you can see that we've looked up how to create. And it was a lot of fun. And the way that Dee, the 3D artist who worked on it with me, did the lighting and sort of shining like a submarine spotlight onto it, it just worked so well. And we were really stoked that they got the cover as well. So yeah, happy days.
Right. And how much time goes into one?
Very good question. So it can range, ideally 2 weeks. Usually the timeline is a little bit shorter than that. So we have to condense our creative process down. But 2 weeks, if anyone's looking to do a cover, is a reasonable time frame.
Okay. And more on, I guess, simple design, and something maybe for the listeners and researchers out there. Do you have any tips on how they should approach, really simple designs for, say, a presentation that they might be doing, or if they might be presenting a poster at a conference?
Yeah, definitely less is more is probably the primary takeaway. The visuals should speak by themselves, but they should be visual, like annotations and words. I don't really consider that unless they absolutely have to be an integral part of visuals. If you can't say it with just the visual, then maybe you need to rework how you're visualizing what you want to say. So process diagrams are a really good example. So if you've got a process diagram and you need to annotate each step with a 50-word paragraph, it kind of defeats the purpose of the process diagram. Yep. So definitely less is more, and think about who's going to be looking at it and what kind of audience that is. So if you're at a conference, consider, your font choices and your font sizes, make sure that they're easy to read. Usability isn't just for a consideration for devices, it's also a consideration for anything that you create or design. So making sure that whoever's going to be looking at your work, it's an enjoyable and easy experience, because that means that they'll take in more of the content, and who knows where it leads from there. That's where sort of you can generate some really nice opportunities by making it an enjoyable experience for people to interact with your work.
Great. So how about life outside of Patton'd Studios and work? What do you get up to in your downtime?
I think I quite like just being a regular 20-something, to be honest. Going out with friends, go to the football, just watching Netflix, I guess, to an extent. I quite enjoy, film and television and studying that. I find it quite, it augments all the things I'm learning, and I see, special effects, and I'm like, oh, I know how they did that. And that's kind of a buzz. But also new experiences. I still love art. I love fine art. I go to galleries all the time, and I find every time I do, you see something new, and it's like this stimulus, and it feeds that creative side of me as well. And, I file it away for later for inspiration. I enjoy travel, obviously not at the moment, but, that's certainly on the cards down the track. Just doing lots of different things, keeping busy. I enjoy exercise as well. I try and do a bit of exercise every day, but COVID has certainly shown me sort of the value and the need for friends and family and those relationships. So it's been nice to slow down and focus on that a little bit too.
Yeah, certainly. So I wonder, this is something I've asked everyone that I get on, but I wonder if you've got a morning routine or something that you do every day that helps you approach your work.
Morning routine. I've tried all sorts of morning routines throughout the years. To be honest, it's finding the right one. Before COVID, I certainly had more of a strict routine. I'd sort of get up and I'd have a certain sequence of things that I would do in order to get in the right frame of mind for the day. And now I sort of, what used to stress me about that was, there are clients that would call and, things would happen, and that kind of got, the sequence got annihilated basically. And, it was frustrating every day. It's like, I still haven't done my morning routine and it's 2 p.m. And it just kind of, it didn't work basically. All the curveballs that get thrown at me throughout the day, it just meant that unless I get up at 4 a.m., it's not going to happen. So now I kind of have like a daily set of things that I do throughout the day, and it's sort of my choice when they get done. So that often involves, some sort of exercise, be it like I would go to the gym, obviously not at the moment, but that was something that I would enjoy doing. I'd walk my dog and have a coffee, and, when that happens throughout the day kind of just depends on sort of how events unfold throughout. And rolling with the punches a little bit more, which has been nice, to be honest. I think it can stay for the time being, this new routine.
So if you weren't doing what you're currently doing for a living today, what do you think you would be doing? Would it be in research?
That's a really good question. I honestly can't imagine myself doing anything else at the moment. And I try to take that as a sign that I'm in the right place. So that's really good. I love the aspect of using all kinds of knowledge, from my research and scientific knowledge through to, the creative skills and techniques that I've learned, and even business as well that I've had to learn along the way very quickly. So, I think I'm in the right place. I'm for who I am and how I learn. This is pretty perfect. So I can't imagine doing anything else, and I'm okay with that. So that's cool.
I normally also ask my guests if they've got any advice for PhD students or researchers, but I wonder if maybe you've got any advice for someone who might be thinking about doing the same sort of thing as you is, starting their own business and taking a chance on something that they're passionate about.
Yeah, advice. Gosh, I'm not really in the business of dishing out advice. I guess what really helped me, it might be useful, is learning to recognize the difference between the things you enjoy learning and the things you enjoy doing. And the best way to do that is to just jump on every opportunity that comes your way, and you'll find that there are things that, sound really cool and you love hearing about them, but actually doing them is not that fun. And then there'll be things that you really enjoy, and you can take that information and really design your own future in a way. There are so many opportunities now than there were, 10, even 5 years ago. Jobs are popping up with the strangest titles, and I quite like that. You can just design something for you, and if that's doing a PhD and going down the academic route, then go for it. And if it's branching out and doing something, innovative, maybe you've come up with a new device and you want to spin it out into a company, go for it. Or if you want to do something completely different, that's cool too. Just do what's right for you, but be informed when you do it, I think, is probably the advice I would give.
So to bring the podcast, I guess, to a bit of a close, do you have any future plans for yourself and for Patton'd Studios going forward that you might want to share?
Yeah, definitely. I've had a lot of time to think over the last few months.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, so a lot of contemplation, and it's been really nice. I'm really proud of how far the studio has come so far, both myself and growing my creative skills, and also how my team and I work together. Building that community of creatives and kind of connecting those two industries, arts and science, together. It's really wonderful. And I think now we've kind of nailed the visual side of things and the visual communication, but moving forward, we want to move into kind of applying those skills and those techniques into ways that we can actually help researchers like reclaim that time back and reclaim, optimizing the fundamental research process so we can, get things translated faster. Because I think ultimately everyone in research and everyone has that goal of solving a problem and having an impact, and we want to help enable that for researchers as much as possible, because they're the ones that have these amazing ideas that can change the world and really help people. And yeah, if we can help them do that, faster with some more funding, more efficiently, then we'll be doing a good thing too. So that's kind of the next goal, and part of that is through education. So I'm actually building and writing, haven't got to the building stage yet, but an online education platform that just has like short courses. Yeah. So like Udemy or Domestika or whatever, but just for like PhD students or postgrad, so master's students, to learn basic graphic design skills, like, how to make a poster or how to make a PowerPoint, how to capture your research, how to take a proper photograph just with your smartphone, like nothing fancy. But how to do that and create this consistency and build up and these layers of quality media, so that kind of when you get to the end and it's like, I've been signed up for a conference and a poster and I didn't know, and now I'm really stressed. And it's like, hang on, I've got all this media here that I took, 3 months ago during my research. I can put something together, and it takes that stress out of it and makes it more enjoyable, and the designs will reflect that. They won't have that stress in them or that uncertainty. They'll look really, really good. And that's when the opportunities come, whether by collaboration or industry interest. And I think that's a really big part of just having a resource where you can learn exactly what you need to learn in a short amount of time. So that's kind of where it's moving, sort of giving back and sort of creating educational content, as well as just running the studio, doing what we do, and consulting a lot more with industry now. And we'll see where it goes. I'm kind of just letting it evolve as it needs to evolve, and I'm just the one who facilitates it and puts it all into place.
And where can people find your work and find Patton'd Studios? I know you're online and social media.
So patternstudios.com.au is our website. So we've got most of the latest projects that we're allowed to publish up there, and some news, some workshops if you're interested sort of down the track. But most of that will be taken online into this new platform. But yeah, social media, we're on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. The studio's not, but that's I quite like being part of that academic chatter sort of PhD life kind of hashtag conversation. And LinkedIn is a big one. I'm often trawling through LinkedIn looking for new opportunities. I never thought I'd say this, but yeah, I really love it. So both Patton'd Studios and myself are on there. So yeah, if you follow us on LinkedIn, no doubt you'll see our content pop up at some point or another, because we're pretty regular on that one.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time and for having a conversation on the podcast today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no worries, Sam. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the ACES podcast. For more episodes like this one, be sure to subscribe wherever it is you get your podcasts. You can also find more information about ACES on our website, electromaterials.edu.au. There you'll find links to our various social media platforms. And you can also follow me on Twitter @Samuel Findlay. Until next time, thanks for listening.